the dogs there in Vietnam and sort of the haste to leave the country and the evacuation, which is a terrible chapter in our dog history, as it were. And many of these handlers are still very much traumatized. It's hard for them to talk about their dogs because they didn't know the dogs were being left behind. But in any event, so moving forward, but I found that talking to people about their dogs first was a way to establish a very solid connection, and that actually made it much easier to talk about war through talking about a dog. And that might seem simple, but it actually sort of worked. And I think it sort of, people have so much love for their dogs. If you're a dog lover, then of course you already know this, but and there's many reasons why humans connect more easily with canines than they do with other species. There's all these fantastic studies that have been done to show that in fact there is a bond and a sort of a biology between the species. So for example, we might take for granted that, you know, when you talk to your dog and you tell them, like, we're going to go for a walk, then of course they know what you mean. You made a gesture and they know what the leash means, and so, okay, they're at the door. That is communication. It's easy, it's simple, and you don't think about it. You didn't train them necessarily to understand that leash means walk, that they just know this. But in fact, it's actually not so unremarkable as that. You know, there's a woman in Sweden who conducted a study between communication between humans and chimps and humans and dogs. And you would think that chimps are much closer in terms of biology to humans than certainly dogs are. But in fact, it's much easier to communicate with a dog. So her experiment was she was sitting across from a chimp that knew her. They'd sort of been in the clinic together for a long time. And she had three cups, and she took a piece of food, and she took a cup, and she put the food down, and she covered it with a cup. And so then she starts talking to the chimp, and she said, the food is here. Here's the food, and she's using her voice, and she's gesturing, and her face is also communicating, and the chimp is doing anything but listening to her. She's picking up the cups, and she's looking around, but at no point is there any sense that one is sort of reading off the other. And then it flashes to the same experiment, but this time with a dog, and the food is on the floor. And she walks into the room, and from the minute she comes into the room, the dog is focused on her. He's looking at her, he's tracking her, and she says, the food is here. She says the dog's name, like, you know, Rex, the food is here. And he goes right to where she shows him. And maybe he smelled it, but, you know, because dogs do have incredible sensory powers, their noses are amazing. But in fact, you know, the dog was listening to her, was communicating with her.
Didn't Anderson Cooper do a form of this experiment on 60 Minutes a few months ago?
I don't know. I might have missed it.
Yeah.
Did he with the dog?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So he's testing, improving the theory then, I guess.
Yeah.
But it is. I mean, so for me, that was really sort of a profound realization that actually there is so much more to this that seems so natural and simple between humans and dogs. Which I think just sort of resonates to why human-to-human contact through this thread of a dog and through the love and affinity we have for dogs makes talking about war a little bit easier. And so that was an interesting part of the book for me. Also, something that was surprising was to find out that a lot of the handlers had a hard time, even if they could talk about how much they loved their dogs, it was very hard for some of them to use the word. I think that part of it might come from the training. The older school of training is always, you know, you're not supposed to get attached to your dog. You know, don't treat your dog like a pet. And certainly that is important. When the dogs are working, they're working. Just like when you're working, you're working. You can, you know, it's easier to do your job if you're focused solely on the task at hand, and same for a dog. But I was very surprised that when I actually asked the question, you know, so do you think your dog loves you then? And some of them said, no, they don't. I said, well, we were just talking 5 minutes ago about how you lost your first dog and how it was the first time you cried in front of your, you know, the men and women that you work with, and how hard it is for you still to think about them, but you don't think that that's about love. And they would say no, and they rely oftentimes on this sort of alpha wolf pack speak, which is I think still pretty common in training dogs. And we rely on the model of a wolf pack, which I think originally it was the idea that there was the alpha and then the betas who sort of fall in line behind the one wolf. But if you read a little bit more about some of the recent writings on dogs, they look at wolf packs not as hierarchies, but actually as families. So the relationships are really more about bonding and loving than sort of following the leader. So this was sort of what I came away with. Of course, handlers and dogs, the emotion exchanged, is love. It's whether it's familial or, a bond between friends. It is, even if you can't use the word, then it is very much about connecting. And I also found that the dogs and the handlers that seemed closer performed better, which to me would be something you'd think that they would want to foster. Because if we are relying again on this sort of understanding that dogs and humans have this unique ability to communicate, doesn't it seem to make more sense then that the closer they are, the better their communication is, and the better they will perform as a team. And I learned this lesson very viscerally on my own, because at one training exercise I went to, I spent a week in Colorado, and I went to a bunch of different military bases there. And at Buckley Air Force Base, I was watching a number of different teams do a number of different searches. They were searching for drugs and they were searching for explosives. And so we get to this bathroom, and one of the sergeants says, "Okay, Rebecca, it's your turn." And I was very comfortable sort of hanging out in the back and taking pictures and writing notes and being very quiet. And they said, no, it's your turn. You're going to find the bomb. And so they gave me the leash to this dog. It's named Haas. He was a German short-haired pointer, and we had been getting along very well. Haas was a really gentle dog. He was people-friendly. And so we'd been hanging out, and I thought, okay, well, this might not be so bad. I think I can do this. I've been watching all of these handlers for hours. We'd been doing this, and I was studying them very closely, so I thought, okay. And I was a little bit nervous because it was me and about 12 other kind of big dudes, and they were all going to watch me in this very brightly lit bathroom. And so I took the leash, and that was it. They just said, find the bomb. So I thought, okay, I can do this. And so I get into the bathroom, and I tell Haas, I say, seek. And I tell him, I point to the door seam, the seam where the wall meets the floor, which is how you conduct your search. So you go clockwise around the room. And he did it. He followed me, and I thought, okay, so here we go. And he's moving very fast because these are not slow searches, right? Like, if there really is a bomb in this bathroom, then you want to find it, and you want to find it very fast. So Haas just takes off and goes. And we go to the sink, and I, tell him to hop up, and he gets up on not all the way up, but he puts his front paws in the sink, and then we're doing pretty well. And then we hit the bathroom stalls. And so the first one was fine. I managed to open the door, and I got him to go around sort of the toilet, and I'm in there with him, and it's crowded, but he gets out, and then he shoots out ahead of me, and he goes to the third one instead of the second one, so I have to pull him back. And then we get into the second one, and he gets all tangled up in the leash, and then I get tangled up in the leash, and I could hear them snickering in the doorway, and I could feel my face getting red, but I was like, I'm not going to give up, I'm not going to give up. And so we get to the second stall, and then we come out, and the tangling happens all over again. And the bathroom door hit me in the back, and it really hurt. And I just thought in my head, I can't do this. And I was still, at the moment while I was saying that, I was still giving the motions. I was still telling Haas to go forward, and he just stopped right there and sat in the middle of the floor, and he looked over at the guys in the door, and he was like, no, she can't do this. And he really exposed me. And it was a very quick lesson, because a number of things that they had been telling me all the way up until this point, I had been listening to, but I had not been absorbing, and those things are one. The emotions run up and down the leash. That's something handlers say all the time. So when you get frustrated, your dog is going to feel that you get frustrated. If you're nervous, your dog might be nervous. But also, it works the other way too. So if your dog is sensing danger, then you should be able to sort of feel that. And also, if a dog doesn't trust you, they're not going to follow you. You know, that they're very intelligent animals. They know how to do the job they're supposed to do. And Haas was like, "You don't know what you're doing. That's it. I'm done."
What are the breeds of choice?
So mostly right now, the United States military uses German Shepherds and Belgian Malinois.
Yeah.
And the reasons for that are German Shepherds are very intelligent dogs, which means that if you're a handler for a German Shepherd, you have to keep them engaged. You can't have a rote sort of like we do the same training all the time because they're going to get bored, or they're going to think ahead of you and know that, okay, I know if I sit down and alert, you're going to give me my toy, which is sort of their driving ambition there. And the Belgian Malinois have this crazy high work drive. I mean, these dogs could work and work and work and work until they drop. They just...
Cairo was a Belgian Malinois.
So they say, yes.
Yeah.
Although I've heard off the record that his name is not Cairo.
Okay.
But
Well, let's assume that his name was Cairo
Yeah.
for the moment. What was he doing? What was he supposed to be doing?
So I would guess that what he was doing is probably there. So Special Forces dogs are trained a little bit differently. There's no record of them, of course, on what they do. And I was able to watch one.
They have covert identities.
They do. They do. And so I got to know some veterinarians stationed in Bagram, really a team of 3. They were really wonderful. And they saw all the dogs that came through Afghanistan. And they would tell me, they told me how many Special Forces dogs they had, but there were no records of them kept necessarily. And when they were killed, no record is kept of how many dogs are killed. So that was actually one thing that was really hard for me to do, was to determine how many dogs have been killed since we started in Iraq, because while records are kept, each branch keeps their own records. They all keep them differently. Some of them will put down a cause of death, some of them won't. And so it's complicated. But what Cairo would have been doing, I would have guessed, is possibly there for helping to detain anyone who might have tried to flee on foot. Because if you've ever watched any of these bite trainings, these dogs, if somebody is running at a great speed and the dogs chase them down, the momentum that catches when they connect and when they hit, it's unbelievable how hard they go down. And actually, that was something else I did in training. I got into the bite suit and I went and got bit. And I was wearing not the thickest jacket, because those are really enormous, and so it didn't fit me, so I couldn't wear it. But the one that I was wearing, they said, no, you're not going to feel anything. Like they train the dogs to catch people like right here on their arms, or right here on their chest, or on their legs. But this is the best way to, if they're chasing someone at a high speed and they catch them here and go down, it's very easy for them, right? They can pull the person down. Whereas if they were to hit their legs, they might stop them, but not totally knock them off their feet. And so, I felt it. I felt every bit of it, and it really hurt. And I had a bruise afterwards, and I've seen some of the bruises on these, these like really big, broad, muscular arms, and they're like this big. They're huge, and it looks like somebody sort of just painted it black. My bruise was very big for me, but it was not. It was like a paper cut compared to like a gunshot wound. It was nothing to complain about, but if I can't imagine what that would feel like without anything.
Talk us through the reporting process. I mean, did you do this big literature review about dogs, and then dogs in the military, and then where did you travel to, and how did?
So I went to a bunch of different military bases only here in the United States, and for me it was more about where I knew people. I tried to avoid at all costs going through the military's public affairs office. While I certainly appreciate and respect the work that they do, if you want to really know anything about how this works, you go right to the source. You don't want someone sort of walking around making sure you're not asking certain questions, and so.
And they didn't have to go through their public affairs to do this?
I didn't. I ended up not being able to. I always had permission to be where I was, but there was at one point, well, off the record, I will say that at one point I was able to go watch something I didn't have permission to do, and I did have to hide in a van for a little while. But the reason why I think that they allowed me to do this is because I really was, first and foremost, interested in educating myself. I wanted to know everything that they were willing to show me, and so if they said, we start PT at 5